Hi, hello, good afternoon. It is the 17th of December 2025, and I've done another viewing of a property, and straight away, it's no. I just cannot get over how many properties I have viewed this year alone that are just in a worse condition than the one I'm already renting. And yet they're on the market in the private housing sector, and people are asking for thousands and thousands of pounds for people to rent these properties, and they're not even safe. Not only that, a lot of people that tend to be forced into the rental market as well are people who are in really good jobs but just cannot afford a mortgage. Or, they might be single and they're not in a relationship. So, again, they can't get a mortgage because they don't fit the mortgage criteria. Or they're over the age of 40. And again, it's one of those areas where once you hit 40, a lot of mortgage lenders and providers will not take you and give you a mortgage. You must also have life insurance to have a mortgage. I know this because my sister's got a mortgage and she and her husband had to get life insurance to have a mortgage. And again, when you're going to be buying a house or renting a house, maybe at the time of renting, you're thinking, am I going to be here long term? Am I going to be here for 6 months? Am I going to be here for a couple of years? So straight away, when I rented the property that I'm in now, it was 9 years ago. Since then, I've got 3 children. I have 2 with autism, and obviously one with sensory processing disorder who has also got autism. I got diagnosed in April of this year with intracranial hypertension, which now means I have a visual impairment. I've got arthritis in my right leg, which again hinders my mobility, not 100%, but it is a disability that I have to be aware of. And as I get older, I need to learn to incorporate the way I live my life to make my mobility and my visual impairment easier and manageable, which is what, the Department of Work and Pensions would expect you to do. So although I may get PIP, they still ask, how does it affect you on a daily basis? So I can't be saying to them, well, the way it affects me on a daily basis is I'm currently renting a house that I can't get into because I can't walk up the step to get into the property. Because their attitude is going to be, well, move, relocate, buy a step that will enable the property to be accessible to you with your need. But, excuse me, a lot of these properties that I'm looking at that are on the rental market, they're not disabled friendly properties. They are not properties that, unless you are 100% able-bodied with no impairments whatsoever or disabilities or long-standing illnesses, you would even be able to get in and out of. The one today, you wouldn't even get a pushchair through the front door. So if you were a family and you were hoping to have a child in the future whilst renting this accommodation, you couldn't get a pushchair through the front door. You can't get furniture upstairs because the stairs are so narrow. Even if it was flat packed, you would really, really struggle to get a crib or a bed or any type of IKEA, say, flat pack furniture, which is what IKEA is well known for, up some of these staircases. In a lot of them, I've looked at them and I've gone, okay, all right, if I was to rent this house, first thing I'd have to do is I'd have to be grab rails. I would have to put the bedroom downstairs. I wouldn't be able to use upstairs. Some of them have been fantastic. They've ticked certain boxes where, they've had a downstairs bathroom. For me, that is absolutely amazing. It's definitely the sort of thing I'm looking for now that I'm in my 40s with my illnesses and my disabilities. But it's not necessarily a life or death situation for me to have a downstairs bathroom. But if I was in a wheelchair and I was forced into the private rented sector because the council, my local council, Nuneaton and Bedworth, you constantly keep posting, we don't have enough housing, social housing for people. And they're not just talking about your average Joe, they're talking about everybody in general. There is so much information out there about how even people with long-standing illnesses or disabilities and limited mobility are constantly in a situation where they're put into a property that may not cater for their needs. They can't put in a stair lift, for example, or they can't have a hoist, or they might not be able to have grab rails or handrails put in the bathroom, or if they do, they have to have the landlord's permission, which is fair enough. And the landlord may turn around and say, no, I don't want you putting holes in my walls. I don't want you drilling into the foundations of my property. And I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, beggars can't be choosers when it comes to tenants looking for somewhere to live. Then with all of these properties at the moment, I mean, every single house I have viewed over the last 6 months is still on the market. And the reason they're still on the market is because they're shit. All right? People have gone in there and have probably looked at it the same way I have and gone, oh, you're having a fucking laugh. You want me to rent your house when there's wires hanging from the ceiling? Is a 2-inch drop from each room that I've got to go, step over to get into each room. The doors don't close properly. The windows don't close properly. There's exposed wiring under the sink. I literally took a photo of some exposed wiring in a property I viewed earlier this year. And when I posted it on social media, everyone was saying, oh, you're taking the fucking piss. People actually contacted me and said, all you've done is took a photo of the house you're currently renting. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm quite lucky. There aren't exposed wires under my sink. But the condition under the sink is absolutely disgusting, and it is not my fault that my landlord has decided to not rectify any of the problems that I've highlighted to him, and has only done at the bare minimum that environmental health have told them to do, and even then not complied with everything environmental health said. And then they're bullshitting and saying, oh, you're a liar, the handrail's been replaced in the house. Oh, this has been done, that has been done. And I'm thinking, what a load of crap. You've wasted 3 years of my life. You've hardly done anything to support me. And now my landlord wants to Section 21 me. And I'm still living in a house where I'm worried that I'm going to get carbon monoxide coming into the property from the boiler, which I found out this year hadn't even been put in properly. 2021 that boiler went in, and now I'm finding out it's still not safe. And I even said to the council, you are expecting people to go into the private housing sector, and these properties are not fit. They are not safe for people to live in. Even if I was to take on a new tenancy, and I was to then say to the landlord, okay, I will take on this tenancy on the condition that you fix the wall, you fix the gutter in, you put LED flashing above the door, you sort out the rotten fixtures and fittings, which are still wood, because you've not, the fascias and the door frames and the window frames, they're all still wood. And I like that. I do like sash windows. They're on an old property. If maintained correctly, they're absolutely gorgeous. I'm not a fan of these plastic ones, but when they are rotten to the point that you put your hand on it and it is literally crumbling under your hands, that it is a habitat for woodlouse and silverfish. And this is before you've even got your tenant living in there, yeah? And you're saying, oh, I want you to pay £1,000 to live in my house. But you're already putting the shutters up on people if they've got children, if they're on benefits, if they've got pets, if they have a long-standing illness or disability, if they are elderly, because again, a lot of the properties I've viewed, they would not be suitable for an elderly couple or an elderly person. So say, I don't know, their loved one passed away and they were looking at downsizing, or, you know, they decided to rent their house out and then maybe rent a smaller property themselves because they didn't want to go into a care home. A lot of these properties would not suit someone who was elderly, who had a visual impairment, despite the fact that the bus stop is right outside the front door or over the road, because they cannot physically get into the house. And that is the problem I've had. I mean, yes, I've got arthritis in my knees. I'm in my 40s. I'm not the most fittest person in the world. But even I have struggled to literally step through the front door or step out of the back door or climb the staircase or, you know, judge the distances of like the space that is in the property, which I know myself I would need to put in adaptable aids to make it more user-friendly for me, which is what I have done with the house that I've been renting for the past 9 years, and I did with my apartments. And even when I lived on a narrowboat, you know, I know it sounds silly, you know, it's a narrowboat. It's 57 foot of space. But even then, so you know, there was glow-in-the-dark stickers on the walls. There was handrails. So every time the boat kind of tipped a little, I had something to grab hold of. And just kind of like steady my balance because of my dyspraxia. But if anything, I found it improved when I was on the boat because my body was having to adjust to, you know, being on water. But a lot of these properties, unfortunately, they are not being looked at through the tenant's eyes as a landlord. That landlord and that estate agent aren't going, okay, Mr. Jones, you're wanting to rent out your house, but have you thought about who might want to rent it? You know, you've got a play park over there, you've got a bus stop over here, you've got a convenience store, you know, but you haven't got parking. So obviously, you know, ideally you're going to want somebody who's not going to want a parking space. So again, you're going to put that on the information, no parking. However, you know, we're on a regular bus route. There's convenience stores, there's a play area. But then if you're saying, I don't want somebody with children, I don't want somebody with dogs or cats, I don't want someone on universal credit or any form of benefit, straight away, the ideal person for that area is going to be going, but I want that house because there's a park, because there's a convenience store, because there is public transport. So why can't I rent that house? You know, and again, you know, it's absolutely disgusting that the houses, like I said, that are on the market, even the one I just viewed today, it was right opposite the bus stop. Amazing for me. Walking to the shops, 5-10 minute walk, I can just about manage that, even with my child with autism. But I couldn't get through the front door. I physically struggled to step up into the house. I struggled to walk up the stairs because they were so steep. And again, you can't do anything about that. But I could have said to myself, okay, the bathroom's downstairs. Realistically, I could reverse engineer the house. So I only have to go upstairs in a case of an emergency. You know, the bathroom's downstairs, the kitchen's there, the outdoors is there. The living room could have become a bedroom for me, and the back could have become a bedroom for my son. And then upstairs could have been for storage. I would have been happy to have done that, and I have done that in properties before. But the fact that there was exposed wiring, that there was handles hanging off doors, rotten fixtures and fittings. I couldn't get in and out of the property without feeling like I was going to fall over and hurt myself. And the electrics in the kitchen just were so unsafe. I wouldn't have even said, to be honest, that the kitchen was outdated, which is what the estate agent was trying to allude to. But I was happy with the layout of the kitchen. It was absolutely beautiful. And that didn't bother me. What bothered me was the fact that the wiring in the kitchen was unsafe. Not that the kitchen looked outdated. The same with the bathroom. It didn't bother me that it was bright pink or salmon or whatever colour you want to call it. What bothered me was the fact that I physically could not get in and out of the house without feeling like I was going to end up having a slip, a trip, or a fall. Because the wood and panelling and everything to get into the property was rotten. The window frames were rotten. The guttering was full of foliage. And so when it was raining, the water wasn't going through the guttering. It was actually coming down the front, cascading down the front of the house, which then didn't have flashing on it, which was the same problem I had with this property, to the point where because there was that much water coming over the guttering, it was causing internal and external structural damage to the property. And when I tried to highlight that to my landlord, they didn't want to know. And like I said, when I rented this house, it just ticks so many boxes. And the main reason it is the way it is now is basically due to landlord negligence and them not wanting to maintain the property over the last 9 years. Whereas a lot of the properties that I'm seeing on the market today, they have really been neglected. And yet they're still expecting £1,000 a month for tenants, yet they're not marketing the houses at the right tenants and then not adapting those properties to make them more user-friendly and therefore more tenant compatible, which would then widen their demographic of people that would potentially want to rent. Now, I know that some of those houses I have viewed, they have not been on the market for more than 2 weeks. You know, I've looked at them and I've gone, forget it, I would never live there. And yet other people have gone, you know what, I would. And that's personal choice. But for me, knowing what my needs are and my child's needs are, I need somewhere that is safe, that is warm, that is dry, and where I'm not going to constantly be having to contact the landlord or environmental health and saying, look, you know, this house has become structurally unsafe to live in. What are you going to do about it? And then worry, like everybody else, that I'm going to be forced into becoming homeless. So hopefully that has shed a little bit of light on the rental market. I can't really talk about anywhere else at this moment in time because I haven't been in a housing association property for years. And wouldn't be my video without a yawn. And I've not rented a council property, so I wouldn't know. So be safe, be warm, be well. And like I said, I mean, you know, give feedback to the estate agent. They're probably not going to do anything about it. They're probably not even going to take anything you say on board. But again, they're losing money. Every time a property is left empty, not only is the estate agent losing money, the landlord's losing money. And you need to be thinking to yourself, why hasn't anyone wanted to rent my house in the last 6 months? In this day and age and in this economy, there is no reason why any property should be left dormant for 6 months unoccupied. And if it is, it's either because you're asking for too much money or it's in such a shit state that nobody wants to touch it. And that is the only two reasons why any property, in my opinion, would still be vacant after 6 months. Thank you.